Welcome back, Raw Thoughts, to another episode with me, Mackenzie Tiggs. I am super privileged to have Ryan Seekert here with us today. He is actually the host of the Takeover Podcast. So we have actually changed seats today, which I'm super excited about. And welcome.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, Mackenzie. It's an honor and a privilege.
There you go.
To be here
yes.
On the Raw Thoughts podcast. And so, yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what your podcast is, how you got into that, and like where you are with it.
So that's a good question. I always like to think about it. It's like my baby. It's the Takeover Sports. I've been doing this for almost 4 years, and I started it in 2019 in October at Boise State when I was there as a student. And I started out in the Fish Bowl. It's kind of like this little radio booth. So it started out as like a radio podcast. And so it's just microphones, no camera. And I started it with my co-host. Very first co-host was James Macho, and we worked at a restaurant together. And, you know, he was a line cook and I was a server. And so I'd always be in the window and we'd be talking sports constantly, right? And so we're sitting there and we're like, dude, like, we talk sports more than we work. Like, we got to do something. And I'm like, yeah, no, we really do. And I would always say that to like some of my other friends. But then I was like, I was on campus one day and I ran into a couple buddies and they had their own like kind of sports talk show. And it's called Blue Collar Sports. Shout out to them, Seth and Trevor. And so they invited me on anyways, and I was a guest, and I was super nervous. But I was super excited, and it went for like 45 minutes to an hour, and I got done, and I was like, this is literally what I want to do. I'm like, I found it. I need to start my own. I got to make this happen. And so that's how I started it. And then I met Roberto and Brandon when I worked at the hotel, and they were like, yeah, we're a podcast company. I'm like, let's ride. Absolutely. And so they were like, yeah. Or Brandon was like, yeah, you know, we need like another audio video tech. I was like, oh, like, I can work for you if you need another. So, and that ended up happening. I worked with Travis for a little. And so I was running my podcast through Speak Boise ever since COVID happened. And so, or I guess it was the year after COVID. So it went from Boise State to Speak Boise. And now, you know, life happens, so I've gone through a couple co-hosts, but I'm still standing. You know, I've started this from the beginning, and I want to take it all the way to the end as far as I can go. And we talk sports. We have athletes on. We have not even non-athletes on. NARPs, non-athletic regular people, is what we like to call each other. Even like intramural sports people, like, you know, in my buddies. You know, some girls as well, like mainline dancers, Boise State football players, you name it. And so it's been a beautiful project, and I love it. So, yeah, and here we are.
And here we are. The roles are reversed.
And I'm not in my hot seat. Yeah, this is that's usually where I sit, too. Mackenzie's got it for now, and so this is foreign to me. This is crazy.
On the other side.
I'm still getting adjusted to it. So
On the other side, sir. Yeah. This is where it should be. Like, I am the main host, right?
You are the queen herself.
Yes.
I'm just the peasant over here, just along for the ride. And so,
no. Yeah. It's really cool to hear you talk about your podcast as like a project, right? Where we do morph it, we change it. Like before we started recording, I was talking about the music that is on mine, like how much I actually despise it myself, and changing that. Like, what have you seen with your podcast that like you've had to change the most drastic part to?
It's there's been so many tweaks. I don't know what the most drastic change would be. Probably the way I prepare would be the most drastic change. And at first, I was always kind of like writing everything down, like almost not like word for word, but all my talking points, it'd be like a couple pages. And this is when I first started, and I was like, okay, this is a little too much. I'm knowledgeable to where I can just write some bullet points, good talking points as well, and then just go from there. Let it flow, right? Don't be so, cut and dry. Because then sometimes your audience can tell. So I've just kind of, just been boom, 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 especially depending on the guest too, whether I'm super close with the person or if it's a complete stranger and we just met as soon as they walk in. So that always that depends, but that would probably be my biggest change. I've changed the logo once. We've got a couple different intro songs we've gone through. Even like cover images, we've done a couple. Had to edit, just some like minor things. And also just the way I post to social media as well. I've changed a little bit, different approach. Now I'm a lot more active on social media because at the time it was just Twitter. So when I was in like that fishbowl or like the radio booth and even first with Speak Boise, I had an iPad and I hit go live on Periscope. That was it. That was the only way we'd record. And honestly, we got so much reach across like, honestly, the world. There was people from Peru, people from Brazil tuning in. So that was pretty cool. But now we're at the point where we have like these actual Blackmagic cameras and it looks so much better. And just looking at how it was from the start till now, I'm like, we got to keep going. So minor tweaks, but the most drastic one's probably been like the way I prepare.
What like tip or trick would you give somebody wanting to get into the podcast space?
Commit. You got to commit because the hardest part is starting it. That is my biggest advice because at first, because like I said, James and I would be like, yeah, we got to do it. No, we should do it. We got to do it. You just got to sit down, get the blueprint, and your actions got to speak, right?
Yeah.
So that's my biggest advice. And if you're really passionate with it, again, some people, they do it for 3 episodes and they just go, no, I don't want to do it. Totally fine.
Right.
I get it. I respected that you tried.
Yeah.
At least you tried. But if you do it and then you're like, oh, I'm passionate with it, it takes a lot of work. You just got to stay committed and just keep pushing.
It does take a lot of commitment.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that one.
And it's a roller coaster too. It's not going to be this like steady climb where you're going up the whole time. It's going to be...
It's highs and lows, peaks and valleys. I think life itself is this ebb and flow state. Like we just kind of got to ride the wave. And there's times where like it's really good and there's different parts of it that can be really good. Like there could be like, oh, I have 7 episodes banked and like now I know for the next, month and a half, like I'm good of like getting guests and I can live life a little bit more. Or there's like people are reaching out to me and that feels really good. And then like there's just different aspects to what a podcast is and which parts are like feeling really like easy and coming very easy and less resistant versus sometimes where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where like my episode's going to come from this week. Right. Yeah. And a new episode every single week. That's, over 80 people I've had. Like, that's the most I've ever committed to something.
Yeah. Have you thought about, like, let me ask you a question,
yeah,
Mackenzie.
Yeah, do it.
Have you ever thought about, like, running one solo? Have you ever done that? Where you have, like, some snippets where you can be like, let me just kind of rant a little bit about this. Have you ever done that?
So I have done 2 episodes out of my, like, 80 by myself. One was for my 30th birthday. Really just kind of, like, gave a little bit more about me, my background. And then the second one I did by myself was my 1 year of podcasting and like the 5 things that I think it was 7, maybe it was 5. I honestly can't remember. I think it was like the
count.
5.
Yeah.
I think it was like the 5 things that I learned from my first year of podcasting. And so I went into that, and it's funny you asked this because I just started recording solo. So listeners will be able to hear, 1 episode a week of me doing it with a guest. And then they will also get a second episode with me by myself.
Wow.
And so that actually has been very intimidating because I'm not usually the one talking a lot. Like I would say the majority of my podcast is my guest speaking. And it's just a total different realm of podcasting by yourself.
Yeah, no, it is. I've done it by myself a few times as well. It's challenging. I don't like to do it live unless there's like a comment section where you can kind of, banter with the comments. But you got to have, honestly, that's when I'm like, okay, I really need to know what like I'm going to be doing next year. I don't know about you though.
It is like, I did have to have a lot of notes, I would say. And then the other thing is I get like almost distracted when it's just by myself. And I'm like, what did I actually say? Like now I'm going on this rant. Like I don't actually remember what I had even like was trying to make a point on. So definitely like structuring it out. There takes a lot more structure to a solo than me just being curious and asking these questions. And I think the other part too is the time frame. Like it's actually really difficult for me to just give like a 10-minute window of a topic.
And stick to it.
Like
go over.
Like I want to go 23. Like my first one was like 23 minutes by myself talking.
Yeah.
And we all know that I can talk a lot. So that wasn't the hard part. It was like cramming it down into like 10 minutes, like making it shorter and impactful. Like I just want to keep going because it's something that I'm usually very passionate about and I can talk about it by myself.
Yeah. Well, and I've found that too. Like when the gears start turning, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, no, okay. It's very hard to pump the brakes a little bit, especially when you're by yourself. And you're right, the guests usually do the majority of the talking. I've always had a trouble hitting the under on the time. The over is the problem.
Yeah.
I'm always going over, and I'm like, ugh, hour 15 again? I'm like, I'm trying to hit 45. With the friends, it's super difficult, but that's just part of it, you know?
It is. There's had, I think my shortest one was like right around like maybe 37 minutes. And I remember actually Roberto telling me, he's like, oh, that was really short. Like you're usually over. And I was like, I know, I just kind of like, I didn't really like feel the vibe between me and my guests. Like I just felt like I was prying. And I was like, I don't want that. And I think sometimes guests can just get a little bit timid. And then they don't want to, or they're very like, okay, what's the next question?
Yeah.
Instead of having it being this collaborative discussion.
Yeah.
And so that one was probably my shortest.
Yeah, because then it doesn't feel like raw and authentic.
Exactly.
And they're not willing to share.
There you go. Ryan's got it. You got to be raw.
Exactly. That's why we're here. I mean,
absolutely. Okay. With that, let's dive deep into who you are. You're like, oh shit, that face you just made.
I'm Ryan, recent graduate at Boise State. I'm a tech recruiter over at a company called Quest Groups. It's a recruiting firm, so I work with like candidates that are looking for jobs and also with companies that are looking for new employees. So I'm like the middleman in like the interview process, trying to like make that happen. So it's a fun job. It's stressful as well. And that's what I do for work. I love to be outdoors. I love to play sports. I really like, recently, I'm going to go off topic here. I played grass volleyball. Usually like it's in the sand, right? But that was the most fun I've ever had playing volleyball. I just had to say that. Yeah, no, I think it's the new wave.
Okay, well, why?
So when you're in the sand, like when you're trying to like pivot and like, like plant your legs, you're kind of like your heels slipping a little, right? Because the sand. But in the grass, you're like,
you're grounded.
You can move, you can jump. And in the sand too, it's kind of like you're sinking a little bit. So like when you're trying to jump. So, I mean, I don't know. The grass, I had a ton of fun. And like when you're diving and stuff, it's like, it's still soft, but like, no sands like in your hair or in your mouth. I enjoyed it a lot. I had a lot of fun.
What got you into volleyball?
I'm not a huge volleyball guy. That's the thing. My buddy, actually, we were supposed to play wiffle ball, but there was a little amount of people. So we played a little, but then my buddy's like, hey, I got like a net on to go. And so he could like set it up. So we set up in the grass and we had enough people to play volleyball. So we had like 5-on-5? Yeah. Fantastic time. It was great.
Okay. I feel like you're in this. I feel like I'm older. I am older, but like not. You're just in this like very peculiar like age where you've just graduated college.
Yeah, ish. 2021.
Okay, so you're relatively new out into like the world. Did you have like this, I would say like identity crisis from going from like college kid to now you're this recruiter? Like, who am I supposed to be? I'm in my early 20s. I'm trying to figure life out. How do I figure life out? Like, where the fuck do I actually go in life?
So I didn't. And I thought I would. And because that's a good question. I mean, I feel like I'm having it a little more. No, I didn't, to answer your question. Luckily, my sister, she worked at Quest Groups before me. And she's like, hey, like, they need another, like, we need more recruiters. So it was kind of something lined up right outside of college, like right when I got done. So I was like, okay, I'll try it out. Sure. I studied media and broadcasting and like digital communication, all that. So I didn't really study like sales business ish. So this job's really taught me a lot in that area. And so I haven't really applied like my media skills there, mostly just here in the podcast. But no, I never did have that. I think it's because I had something lined up outside of college immediately. But if I didn't, I'd be like, oh, like, where do I do? Like, or where do I go? What do I do? I think it would have hit me a little harder then. But yeah, honestly, nothing crazy, to be honest, no.
That's a bummer because I'm still pretty confused in my life.
And I feel like, I mean, in a way I am too, where I'm kind of like, do I want to get in the sports industry professionally? Recruiting's a career, like you kind of build a network and then like people keep coming back to you, companies come back to you like, hey, I liked working with Ryan, or this candidate be like, hey, Ryan, I'm looking again. What do you have? So I've noticed that. And that's the really cool part, is building all those relationships. But yeah, I'm kind of figuring out like what I want to do next at this point though. Yeah.
It is something.
Something in the sports industry would be a slam dunk for me. I really don't want to I don't want to stay in like the sales industry. I don't know. It's not like you're like being fake, but when it's like a commission structure, it's harder than people think. Like, you're not like yourself, but you are. Like when you're yourself, it helps. But like when you're trying to like land like a fee agreement or like a placement, you're kind of like rooting for like the money to happen. It's just, I don't know. That's just my gut feeling. I feel like I belong like in the sports world. That's just where I'm the happiest.
Yeah.
Not like not happy at my job. It's cool. It's taught me a lot, but.
What's the toughest thing about your job? You talked about being on commission, and that can also kind of bring up its own struggles. Like, what's your take on that?
That's a good question. So, I mean, you want to talk about like roller coaster ride. This thing is the highest loop-de-loops you've ever you'll experience. So, and it's market dependent too. So we're in like the tech industry. So if companies are laying everyone off like crazy and the market's down, companies aren't going to need recruiters, right? Because everyone's applying to everywhere. They don't need recruiters. And that's kind of what's been happening with us. So we've lost a lot of people because of that. So it's been a struggle. We've had minimal jobs to work on. Even my CEO, he was like, I've worked through 9/11. I've worked through the 2008 recession. I've worked through COVID. He's like, I've never seen anything like this.
Really?
Yeah. He's like, companies aren't paying us because, you have to like sign an agreement, get the candidate paired and all that. And so that's when you get paid. But there's been companies like, no, like we're not going to pay you. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? So then we've been taking companies to collections, and it's been crazy. And a lot of companies just aren't hiring right now. And so we've lost like 20 employees.
Wow.
We had 30, and now we're like down to like 12. And there were some people that have been there for like 10 years, 7 years, even 15 years. And they're like, we can't do this.
Are you afraid in this point?
Oh my goodness, I'm very stressed. Yeah, I can't lie. I mean, everyone feels it. Like you kind of walk into the office and it's just like everyone's like that. Granted, like our leaders, our VP, he's great energy, but he's seen it all as well. And he's really the only one, and the CEO, that have stuck around, that have been there since kind of like day one. So, but again, like they're both co-founders of like a sister company we have going. So they have a lot on the line right now. But yeah, it's just tough market all in all. I am, stressed. That's why I was kind of like, I'm definitely keeping my options open. That's when I was like, maybe right now I might be kind of like, what do I want to do next? Do I want to get in the sports industry? Yeah, I think I want to get in the sports industry, honestly, yeah. I think that's what I want to do, yeah. And that's why I'm like, I don't know if I could do 100% commission again. There's no stability, and that's stressful. But when you'd make like 3 placements a month and all 3 of them stay, and then all 3 of those checks come in the month, crazy feeling, right?
Right.
But that's part of it.
I mean, it definitely is, especially, I mean, in my realm of real estate, right? Like it also is a very weird market right now. We've got some people still paying $1 million in cash, and we have some people that can't even get a loan. You know, it's so all over the place. And I think what you said, you know, in sales, it really is one, leading with your heart and not chasing that check.
Yeah.
But two, like still being your true self. And that can be difficult when you're like, I don't want to feel eager, but like I am eager, you know, for that. Like my food on the table is dependent upon that, you know?
Yeah.
And there is just a lot of, you know, kind of struggles with a full commission.
There 100% is, yeah. And it's like you can kind of feel it with everyone. And usually last year, like people were like, oh, like if I'm not making a placement, like what am I doing wrong? Like if you'd bagel a month, that means like no placement in a month. They'd be like, okay, hey, maybe we need to fix something. Or hey, maybe the outreach isn't there. But now, like if you bagel this year, it's like
no surprise.
Yeah, okay. It's like no surprise. Like people really don't think twice about it. It's just like it's been that crazy of a year. Like our CEO, like if we bagel, he's just like, do you need help? Are you good? Like that's the conversation we're having this year. And it's crazy.
How do you mentally keep yourself sane with getting turned down this much or not making it, but still keeping a positive outlook and a positive, you know, mindset through this?
It's because life in itself is just, it comes in waves, especially when you're doing the right things. And what our bosses always say is control what you can control. And right now, that's the most frustrating part is like we are controlling what we can control. Yeah, the morale is really down. So obviously like we're kind of like a little gun shy to keep cold calling because we've just been told to F off. I don't know if I'm allowed. I mean, just a lot. Just like, hey, no. And it's like, what's the point now, you know? But then there's like the one person that gets like oh, hey, they are hiring. So, and it's like, it's just very demoralizing right now. But I just got to keep telling myself like, hey, like something's going to happen. But at this point, me and like a good buddy of mine in the office were like, hey, 2 more months. And then we might have to change careers, or I guess just find something with more stability. So that's just kind of, I don't know. I just have faith. I'm not even religious, but I'm like, either this is going to turn around or I'm going to land somewhere that's going to be good for me.
I like that mindset.
Yeah.
Faith over fear.
Exactly.
Okay, we talked a little bit before you coming on or us going live onto the podcast.
Yes.
And I really want you to kind of dive into the younger you. Like, what was that like? I want you to kind of describe, you know, kind of that incident and what happened and who you are and of your mindset.
So, a lot of you that know me, especially my close friends, I lost my dad when I was 14. And family, like, I don't know, we were always kind of, you know, on and off. Like, young me was good. But, you know, there was a point where obviously, you know, parents divorced in 6th grade. I mean, dad's side definitely took a turn for the worst, alcohol related. And my sister and I, we would always be with our mom. Like we were kind of moving around. My mom, you know, kind of dated a few guys. And then we took a leap to Twin Falls because she dated a guy. Then we moved back. And we were just always it was just a lot to deal with. And so 8th grade me, I'm just kind of like, I'm along for the ride. I was just playing Little League Baseball, playing Wii Sports, playing Call of Duty. And, I was just still like that fun, goofy kid. But on the academic side, like I feel like I wish I tried a little bit harder in school, you know? That's just me. But again, I mean, looking back on it, it is what it is. But I don't know. I'd always like kind of have like horror stories. But I kind of laugh about it now. It's just the way I cope with it of like my teacher being like, Ryan, like, you have so many missing assignments. Like, you're failing. I'm just like, yeah. But it's like 8th grade, you know, they still move you on. But that's when high school, I was like, okay, I got to start trying. And I did. But in a way, I kind of just like skated by, you know, high school. It's not, you kind of almost have to try, you know, to fail in high school. But, you know, like they kind of held our hand through senior project. Like, okay, this is how you know, source, annotate and all that and research. And so it wasn't bad. I had a good time in high school. You know, I had fun. I wish I played football, but I didn't take like working out seriously or anything like that. But again, I was just kind of always coming home, you know, eating a little bit. I weighed 145 my senior year. I was pretty skinny. So I couldn't play football. I played a little baseball. But high school, yeah, it was fun. I made a lot of friends. You know, everyone always kind of knew me as like the funny kid. I had a lot of friends, which was good. But, you know, that was kind of young me. But then when I went to college, I definitely got a lot more confident in myself. I feel like graduating high school that's kind of where my life really turned for the better. Got more confident, you know, started lifting more, started eating more, dating more. And I don't know, I've been a lot happier ever since. Like going to Boise State, I look back and I was like, that was the best decision of my life. And sometimes I'm like, dang, maybe should I have gone out of state? But then I look at the financial aid and I'm like, I made the right decision.
Yeah.
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 So, because again, like if I tried harder in high school, could have maybe got the scholarships, domino effect.
Right.
So, but
right.
yeah.
But I mean, as a 14-year-old kid and losing your father, like what was that like? Like to me, that father is like as a son who you look up to, or kind of, you know, obviously you had that divorce, you had that divergent, but like, what was it for being a young male and your father passing away?
It was still, I'll never forget the moment. And even my mom, she got a text like the night before. And I like, you know, when you see like your parents cry and you're like, something's off. So my mom was kind of like tearing up and she was drinking some wine and I was like, what's wrong? And I go up and like, she flips her phone over. She's like, nothing. Like, you know, like, just, you know, go back upstairs, you know, hang out with your friends. I'm like, okay, that's weird. Anyways, like, but then the next day comes around, then she broke the news. And I was just kind of like, I was just numb. I was like, there's no way. But I was 2 years, this was 3 years after the divorce. So I wasn't really in touch with my dad. And I think my mom made sure of that because of, I don't know, he's kind of going down a path and like he was drinking heavier. And yeah, it is what it is. But I mean, I was just super numb. I mean, and like that's kind of like the whole high school thing where I was kind of like, just kind of coasting by. And so I never really went to therapy either to kind of like let it out, ask more, but that's something I really want to get back into. It never really affected me, like for me being like mean to other people or like I was never like projecting mean stuff, but I think my coping mechanism was kind of just like not trying as hard in high school. And so I definitely still think about him all the time. He was a good dude, for all I knew. I mean, I was this little kid, but his business struggled. He was an architect, you know, he was building hotels, so he was always traveling. And so, I mean, there was some decisions I do know that he really should not have made. That kind of put our family in jeopardy. But I always think about like, you know, our fishing trips. I don't remember the last conversation I had with him. That one eats me up pretty good. But I know he's with me. You know, I know he's with me. And so yeah, it's crazy. I'm just always like, especially now at this age where I'm like, God, like, I wish I could get a beer and like just kind of just chat about life with him, like what he went through, like what he's done. And that's one thing that really gets me where I'm like, geez, like I see my buddies like parents weekend, dads are in. I'm like, dang, you know. So it's always in the back of my head.
Yeah. Do you have a father figure in your life?
No, my mom, she never really dated and she never got remarried after that. But you know, I would always, you know, no, I don't, honestly, to answer your question. But I'd say one person that I do look up to is honestly my professor at Boise State, Nathaniel Snyder. And he would give me so many good life lessons. And this, like, you know how I didn't try in school? I would literally stay after class for this guy. And, like, we'd have conversations and he'd give so much good advice. And he was like, you know, like, I was a partier and I did drugs. But then I started hanging out with, like, the nerdy kids. And, you know, like, I'm a nerd. And I don't know. I love the conversations. He is so just genuine and pure. And I could pick his brain. And I was just so intrigued on like his stories. It was fantastic. And so that's one person I really look up to. Like we've gotten like a beer date ever since graduation too. And so he's a hard man to get a hold of, I will say. But I mean, he's a professor, so I get it. And he's a very likable guy. I've noticed like a lot of students always hit him up. And that's one person I definitely consider as a father figure. Some of my other like friends' dads, I'd have good conversations with. honestly, the VP at my current company right now, Dustin, he's another guy I really look up to as well. And so, yeah.
Does that ever do you ever think, I don't know if males do this, maybe you can enlighten me. Do you ever think of when you're going to be a dad one day?
All the time.
Okay.
And I can't wait, honestly. Well, I can. I take that back. I can wait to be a dad, but I'm very excited to be a dad because I want to be the better version of him. Mm. And I just want to see a mini me or a couple mini me's grow up. Even I could see myself being a girl dad too. I've always been around my mom, my sister. And yeah, I don't know. I could just see that happening. So whether I have a son, daughters, or sons, I'm looking forward to it, honestly.
That's cool.
I have thought about that a lot, actually. And yeah, it's I always think about it what's my kid going to look like? What sport is he going to play? I've definitely thought about that.
Yeah. It's just intriguing because it's I know through my life, there's points where I do think about that. And then there's at points where I'm I do not want kids, right? There's this spectrum of it. But just searching for, and I come back to my biological dad where we didn't have a relationship. My stepdad is who I call my dad. Mm-hmm. And so it's just I think that curiosity of where do you get that father figure from? Because I think that's so important in our young lives of who we are. And obviously our mothers are very important to us as well, and that good relationship. But there's just something about a man and that masculinity and guiding you and helping you through that.
No, absolutely. And that's where I'm dang, I kind of wish I did have a father figure through high school to be hey, quit partying. Hey, focus on your grades, play football, and all kind of I needed that.
Stern.
I really did need that, honestly. And my mom, I think she was probably going through it too. And so she was never really on my ass at all. And my mom's fantastic. She's an amazing mother, but she was never on my ass that much. And so I was kind of just always doing my own thing. I don't know. I was kind of a menace in the classroom a little bit. I was always spacing off too. My ADHD was pretty bad, and so, yeah, I could have definitely used a little slap on the back of the neck.
I mean, I just talked to all my teachers, and I got passed through high school, and the only reason why I got a 4.0 was because I was in AP art class, and so that made up
for the 3.8.
Yeah.
That's awesome. AP art, that's crazy.
Yeah, you gotta send it off to the college. I had gotten, that's one of my, I would say, not regrets, but I do wish I was a little bit more stern on making that decision of going to the Art Institute. That was I got accepted into it, went and toured it, but it was different, right? Our parent, all of the things, but I still love art. It's just, it's kind of a freeing way to let yourself just be a kid again, and just let it be. But my other question to you is you didn't really play a lot of sports. How did you get into loving the sports?
Oh, and that's a good question. So in high school, I tried out for baseball. I got cut, tried out again, cut, tried out again, cut. Senior year, cut. And I was I don't know. It was just the worst feeling. And so the reason why I play so much sports now is because it's not I did like a coach, but now it's I'm my own coach too. So I've always had a chip on my shoulder. I've always been the kind of the skinnier kid, growing up, kind of always kind of giving shit to me. I don't know. It was kind of and that's why when I play sports, I play them hard. And honestly, I'm good. I really am. I'm a good basketball player. I'm really good at flag football. And even in baseball too, when we play wiffle ball, I can hang. And even in softball, I'm one of the best players. And so, and that's when I'm just wow. I feel it took this motivation for me to really kind of be passionate about a sport. And I feel I could have done great in high school, or collegiately, I don't know if I could have made it. Honestly, I was fast, but again, I wasn't big at all. I was 145 my senior year, I know, but and I just love playing all sports. And so now I'm just again, I wasn't super motivated in high school, but now that I'm in college, out of college, I'm curious to everything. I'm saying yes to everything. I'm yeah, let's go do it. Yeah, let's do it. And so I'm super competitive, even with video games. ping pong, like you name it. I've always had that chip on my shoulder of like, I just want to be good. I want to be good.
What about talking about the sports, like with your podcast and like loving the sports, like the athletes?
Yeah. So, and that starts from that stems from when I was super young. And my dad always thought like, he was like, hey, my uncle, my dad, grandpa, we'd be like at a restaurant, like my grandpa and uncle would be like, Ryan, can you go check the score in like the bar, like the boys state game? I would literally run over. And I was always passionate. I'd be looking at the TV. I'm like, okay, go, run back, give them like all the scores. Hey, Fresno State's here, TCU's here, blah, 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 Oregon, Texas. They're like, oh, okay, awesome. And then I was always watching sports with my dad. And another reason too, like chip on my shoulder, competitor, and like just love the game. Like I just love sports is Kobe Bryant is probably my biggest idol. And the Mamba mentality of him just like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. And that was always like the best memory I had with my dad was watching the Lakers. And so I'm a Lakers fan. And that's just kind of where it started. And I'd always loved watching sports. I was very analytical. I do like the statistics. And I love the debate aspect of kind of like, obviously there's stats involved, but like players play a different way. And, some players were better in a different era. Some players were better when they were older or when they were younger. Sometimes injuries kind of got to them. So there's like a whole debate you can have of like just, hey, who was better here? And so I just love talking about it.
How do you remember all of that? Like it is very analytical, but like even just you guys talking before we started recording was like you were talking about this person on this team and like how the hell do you remember all that?
I think it's just like my passion, and I mean, a lot of people say the same thing, and it's funny, where I'm just like, honestly, some stuff just sticks.
Yeah.
Cause like, I was never really a big note taker in high school. I'd be like, oh, like I can remember this, but some classes it worked, some classes it didn't. But
you also were just saying that you like skimmed by in high school, so I don't know if that's
so that's exactly so. But like. When it comes to like watching sports,
yeah,
I could watch a game, I could look at the box score and I'll remember everything. I'll just pick it up.
I don't have that.
And I love it. And it's obviously better kind of like with my favorite teams. I'll remember it a little bit more because I'm watching like my games, but then watching the highlights, watching the other games and kind of like how players play and fantasy football helps. Sometimes like the fantasy sports, you kind of keep track of that and you look at it again. One thing I'm honestly pretty decent at too is like where collegiate players, when they make it to the NFL, where they went to college, kind of remembering that. And so I don't know. I'm very passionate about it. I'm kind of a nerd about it, but.
Do you ever like place bets?
Yeah, no. Never. Honestly, I'm very smart with my money.
That's good.
No, I have placed bets. I've won big and I've lost big, and that's when I was just like, I'm gonna hold off for right now, because obviously job's not going super well, so I don't have like the funds to bet. But I have made bets where I'm like, okay, wow, I think so and so can do this, but I don't know. Vegas, they know what they're doing. So sometimes you're like, oh, I'm super confident Klay Thompson's going to hit more than 4 threes. He's a 3-point shooter, right? But then he'll shoot 2 for 11 and the under hits, and you're like, what the heck? So there's that. It's kind of frustrating. I'm not super big into betting, but I will play some like fun bets here and there with my buddies, but I'm not like a DraftKings Vegas odds spread the guru.
Right.
So
I only ask that because I feel like if you're watching those statistics, looking at it analytically, then like I feel like that's kind of like a next step or kind of maybe something that falls into there.
Right. So I look at it as honestly the way I feel is like, like a bet's like 50-50, right?
Mm-hmm.
But obviously the odds shift. So when you have all those stats, when you have all those analytics, I feel like the odds then go to like 53 to 47. Mm-hmm. So like you get maybe like the slightest advantage where it could work, but then weather can play a difference. Oh, yeah. Teammates being hurt.
Their mindset,
a coaching change, something you don't know behind the scenes like a fight in the locker room. Okay, the chemistry is all over the place. So there's those factors where, honestly, even before a game that happens, you can be like, okay, no, he's off his game. That time, like, okay, that's kind of a huge boost. But then there's sometimes the stuff you don't know, the bet of, or kind of bites you in the butt.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it's again, roller coaster.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't even have a favorite NFL or base. I have no favorite teams actually. Like I love to play sports. Like I even played flag football and wanted to play tackle football when I was a kid.
It's fun.
And I'll play them. I love them. I'm like, okay. I'm like above average, but I'm not higher than that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
But like who are your favorite teams first of all, and how did you pick them as your favorite teams?
So the Lakers one stems with my dad and the Dodgers because he was born in Los Angeles. So I kind of grew up being like a Lakers and then a Dodgers fan for basketball and baseball. But the NFL one sometimes throws people for a loop. I'm a New Orleans Saints fan.
Okay.
And so some people, like my dad was a Raiders fan because they were in LA at the time and they were in Oakland. And then when we lived in the Bay Area for a little, we'd go to Raiders games. And so this is when my team was like kind of the Raiders. I didn't really have a favorite NFL team, but my dad's like, yeah, let's go to the Raiders games. We'd always go. And they had the worst team like historically at the time. So I'm watching the Raiders lose 42-14 constantly. And I'm like, Dad, this isn't fun. I don't want to be a Raiders fan. And he's like, son, I don't blame you. And so I'd be like, okay. So I'm like, okay, well now I do want a favorite team though. So he was a USC fan, like the Trojans, there was this running back named Reggie Bush. And so he was, I'm still to this day, like one of the most electrifying players I've ever seen. And the Saints drafted him. And so I was like, I want to be a Saints fan. So Reggie Bush was the reason I'm a Saints fan. And yeah, those are my favorite teams. I mean, I'm trying to be a hockey fan. It's not my biggest sport, but I gotta watch it more. But
I do have a favorite team on that actually, the Vegas Knights, and I've gone and seen them twice. Yeah.
Okay, I heard they put on the craziest like pregame like.
It is literally shows. Like a Vegas show.
That's
like,
so cool.
It is so amazing. And then I was actually down in Dallas when they played like their third game. I think it was their third game where Dallas actually won, and it was absurd in the arena. Like it was so crazy. And really the only way that I like love the Knights is one of my best friends took me, like she's a crazy, like she's like you. She's like analytics, knows everything, goes to all the games. And she lives in California. And so like we went to Vegas and I was like, okay, I can get behind this. Like I want to watch this. Like this is amazing. And I happened to be in Mexico when they were here because they played here last October. Yeah, they did.
Wait, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, it sold out in like, I can't remember. It was like less than 5 minutes or something that they were all sold out.
And they just won the Stanley Cup, too.
They just won the Stanley Cup.
Super cool.
Yes. I am looking, okay, I don't usually get on my phone, but I do want to give a shout out because, and I want to see if you know this guy, Ed Hochuli.
Ed Hochuli?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the NFL football ref.
Yeah. I want to give him a shout out. He's a listener.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
Big Ed.
Yeah.
You're awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I think he retired.
He did.
Okay.
He did. He travels for like 9 months out of the year.
Okay.
And that's actually how my dad got to meet him. My brother-in-law and my dad met him in McCall. And that was just like a fun story that I heard and of like how he was listening to the podcast. And then him and his wife were headed. They're going to be in like Colorado for a couple months. And then they have like a house in, I believe it's Arizona. But yeah, I wanted to give like, now we're talking sports. I know like some tie into this, right? Yeah. I have some weight into this podcast on sports.
Yeah, no, hey, Ed, huge fan, dude.
Yeah.
Definitely check out the podcast, the Takeover Sports, if you want to stick to that area, So just want to give you a shout out as well. You're awesome. Congrats on retirement too. Hope you're living it well. Hope you're hitting the ball straight down the fairway when you're golfing. So
yeah, I'm excited.
Nothing but the best.
He's coming back in 2025 to Boise area, to the area. And the podcast is still going to be around. So Ed, this is
yes,
this is going to be a shout out to you, Ed, you are invited onto the podcast of Raw Thoughts. So I'm excited. Anyways, there was my one plug of somehow, some way knowing something.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like Hall of Fame ref.
Mm-hmm.
So
he's got my dad did send me a picture of his motorhome.
Motorhome.
Quite stellar.
Ed Hockley's motorhome.
Like big
on
travel
wheels.
bus. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty awesome.
I need to see some pictures of that.
I'll show you that afterwards.
Okay, yeah.
That'll be like afterwards, behind the scenes.
No one else can see that. Yeah. Right.
Anyways, what else do you have like going on in your life? You have the sports, you have the podcast. Like, what's your dating life in these? Like, I want to talk about that for a second. Like, what is dating at your age like? Because dating sucks at my age.
It's good. It's just, I don't know. We're in this like community, and Boise in itself too, I think makes it a little tougher because it's a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're in college or even just getting out of college, or even if you even went to high school here and you're still here, there is like a mutual someone with everyone, I swear. So that's the craziest part that I've kind of noticed. It's a bubble. Pros and cons, that I've, I don't know if you agree or disagree, but
I think there's pros and cons. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's good. Like, I don't know. Like, I've had a lot of fun, especially in like my college, days. I've had like 2 serious relationships, but then now I'm at this point where I'm like, I really don't want to get into like a relationship, like tied down if like this girl isn't the one.
Mm.
I don't know. And to me, it seems like, why would I waste my time? And I'm dedicated to my craft, my job, what I love doing. I feel like I found peace. And I'm kind of scared to break that for someone in a way.
Mm.
And so I feel like this person needs to be like the perfect complement for me to break that. And so that's just kind of my opinion. And the girls that I have dated or like went on a couple dates with, or, they're not bad girls at all. It's just, sometimes it's just, there's no fit or you lose feelings. It's as simple as that. I know it's cliche. There's plenty of fish out there. It's just, hey, for everyone listening, if you're struggling to get over someone, it's just a girl, or hey, it's just a guy. You got to move on.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's that. And so I feel like there's been a couple people where I'm like, oh, like, were they the one? Like, did they get away? But I just got to be like, hey, there's a reason you're not together, or you can cross paths potentially. But in a way, I feel like, I don't know if it's just me that feels this way, but like, I feel like it's really hard to re-engage in a relationship now. How do you feel on that?
I think it's really hard to like re-engage in any conversation, like in a serious I think, and this is kind of why like a younger person, like I wanted to pick your brain about, because like the online dating is just like its own frenzy within itself. Like, I just hate it. It's stupid.
It's window shopping.
Yes.
I don't catch feelings that way.
No, there's no chemistry. There's no like aspiration. There's just like, there's just a picture. Like, you literally are judging them off of
looks.
Yeah. But there's also like not only looks, but like, what's their background? Like, what activity are they doing? Yep. Like, are they standing there with their truck and their shirt off? Like, it's the whole picture, not just what they look like.
Yeah. And another thing too, the age is like right there. And I think a lot of people always kind of discount that. My parents, I think they were like 6 years apart.
Mm.
And I don't know. I feel like some people kind of take age into consideration.
Yeah.
A lot. And obviously, there should be some sort of like, close proximity, but everyone has their own opinion of that. Obviously, it needs to be reasonable, in my opinion, at this age at least. I feel like when you get older, it can get a little
wider. Yeah, your age range can be wider.
Right.
I think it's difficult because I think you actually hit it right on the head, where you want to be, I don't know if this is gonna be a compliment, where you're stuck in your ways, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm not gonna compromise unless you're the one. But how do you know that she's the one? How do you let somebody in?
So that is a fantastic question. I kind of want to talk about that too. I feel like even in my whole life, I feel like there are like less, maybe like from like 6 to 10 girls where I'm like, I actually had like legit feelings for. I feel like it's hard for me to catch feelings. And I don't know if it's like a timing thing or like I don't know. That's probably the toughest thing for me because obviously everyone has like their own way of dating, how they want to date. You know, I've seen some people where they just boom, hop around, boom, 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 boom. They just jump into another relationship as soon as they're done. Like no healing. Some people do have to heal, then they jump back in, or some people just don't date. And so it's hard for me to catch feelings. And I don't know why. And maybe it is kind of like that scared me, like, hey, I need to make sure they're the right person for me to break this motion that I'm kind of going through. I don't know. Do you have any insight on that, Mackenzie?
Well, I think my personal opinion is a lot of men are like you. And I think that's what's really hard for somebody like me, like that wants to get to know you, but you're like, oh, I've got work or I've got this or like something else is always better. And so I'm like, well, they're not even giving me the time of day.
Yeah.
Right? I also know that I've done that to other people as well, where like you just automatically know, like go on a couple dates and you're like, we just like don't mesh. Like we just don't like.
I don't feel it.
I don't feel it.
I'm just
like there's nothing wrong with you. There's like it's just we're not gonna fit, right?
Yeah.
But you do have to. I do agree with you where everybody kind of has a different like timeline of like what it looks like to heal from the last relationship.
Yeah.
What dating looks like what you're available to. I know definitely like when I was younger, like I didn't ever like to just like freely date because I knew I was really injured from like my biological dad. And I didn't ever heal from that until like this last year to be like, oh, I can't put that on everybody else as like males or like have them live up to this expectation that like is really only my expectation. I think it's just difficult. Like, I think it's difficult to go out and do things. We're always comparing. We don't like to be in person anymore. Like, I think COVID really shut a lot of that off as well, of like that curiosity of just like, I don't know, is this gonna work? Like, I've gone up to like, honestly, you men are so difficult. Like, and maybe it's just like,
am I difficult?
I think you could be.
You think so?
Yeah, I think you could be difficult in the fact of like that you have a lot of walls up. Like, I'm not the perfect one, right? Like, like if I was a younger version, like, and trying to date you, like, I think that would be really difficult because I see that with myself now with men, where it's like they're just like, this is my way. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm like, that's great. Like, I want to help you build that. Like, I actually want to come alongside you. And like, I want to help you build that. And I want you to help me build this. And like, we're a team. Like, we come in as like a team. Like, that's my intention of like wanting to date nowadays for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know. It's just like a weird, like, I probably can be way too talkative on dates. Imagine that.
Now you're just kind of like second guessing. Like, oh wow, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe. Oh man.
But like, I know I'm a very open book, and I don't think men are very curious. Like, I think they're just like, I don't know. Tell me your insight.
You're not wrong. Honestly. I am curious sometimes. It's kind of like how, like, am I like, okay, like, is this, like, do I really want to get to know this girl, I think, is when I'm like, okay, I am curious. But if I'm just like, I don't know, we didn't really vibe. She wants to go on another date, or she wants to hang out. Again, I'm just like, okay, sure. But then that's when I'm like not feeling it. I'm like, man, maybe I shouldn't have said yes. But like, obviously, like I'll still have a good time. But then I kind of just be like, not feeling it. It's just, it's dating's a lot, especially like at this age, like it's effort from both sides. And that's the only way it's going to work is it's got to be 50-50. But if someone's not giving their 50, you got to make up for that. But then that person's also got to make up for that as well. You got to keep meeting back in the middle. If someone's slagging,
it's that compromise.
You gotta balance each other out. So that's really what it takes. It's not that like I'm not curious. It's just like if I am curious, then I will be curious. Because you're right, I do have some walls up. Because I'm like, I'm kind of scared to like lose like not like my freedom, but like I can go play volleyball with the boys anytime I want, or like I can go to a concert with like some of like my girlfriends or like some of my other boyfriends as well, and just be like, yeah, I have no repercussion, right? I don't have to be home at a certain time. There's no, I don't know, because like maybe it's also some past relationship stuff where I'm still kind of like, oh, like I don't want to have to deal with that again. Where I'm like, I was out a couple hours longer than I told her I was gonna be, right? I don't want to. Because I'm
you don't want to be in the doghouse for.
I don't, Mackenzie. You're right. I don't. And so I'm just like, maybe kind of just scared to date again. I don't know.
What would you tell girls, like, if you could give them dating advice of, like, don't do this?
Ooh. Don't do this for girls. Like on first dates or just, like, even in, like, a relationship?
I think maybe... I want to know what your first date is and then in a relationship.
Oh.
I want both.
So you want to know, like, what my ideal first date looks like?
No, I want you to tell me, like, if you were on a first date and a girl did this, you're like, no. Or advise her, like, don't do this on a date. Like, we're gonna have a girl.
Girl's in the hot seat right there.
Yeah.
I would be like, listen, if we're at dinner or like if we're trying to have a conversation, do not let me carry the whole time. So find ways where I want to know about you, but then also if you're not interested in what I like to do, or you don't want to know what I like to do or what I want to do, if I'm always having to pry of you, this isn't going to work. Simple as that. So don't do that. Definitely ask about me. I ask about you. It's, again, should be a two-way flowing conversation. Rule number 1.
I love it.
Rule number 2. No, I'm just kidding.
Go.
That's just my first one that really comes to mind is if I'm always having to pry, I'm just like, okay, then I kind of I build, and this is kind of normal, I feel like, for humans to do this. We already build an image in our head where I'm like, okay, I see a future of where if I'm always having to pry of a conversation, I'm probably always going to have to be like kind of picking up her slack with other things.
Yeah, I don't think that's wrong. I think that's even relationships that we have in jobs, right? Like we know that person where like we have to pry and we have to help pick them up like all the time.
Yep. And even like even with sports, with work and relationship, you're as strong as your weakest link.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be like, hey, are we going to win a Super Bowl? I need you to pick up the slack. My goodness. Like, come on.
Because I get cut from the teams every time.
Yeah. I'm airmailing the ball because you're not putting your hands up. Let's go. So that's like my first initial, like, hey, is this going to be a red flag?
What about in the relationship?
Communication. So it doesn't have to be, again, like, if she's going through something, if she's upset, or like something rubs her the wrong way, talk to me. Let's compromise. Let's figure it out. I'd love to figure out where I need to fix something, because if I don't know, I don't know. I can't help you. I don't want you to stay. Like, guys can tell when a girl's mad. They can tell.
Oh, yeah.
The body language, Sometimes, sentences are short, less eye contact.
The piercing eyes from me come out strong.
We can tell, and we'd love to. I personally would love to, get to the bottom of this. What am I doing wrong? Oh, maybe I see a different view. Do we need to meet in the middle? So communication is the most important thing. So the dates I've gone on, some girls I've dated, the communication aspect, if it was ever lacking, it was my least favorite relationship or person I've dated.
Interesting.
What do you think?
I feel like men nowadays, like, they suck at communicating because I think they're so busy and, like, they don't. I think you can also tell when somebody's interested in you because they do want to communicate to you. But then I think nowadays, I'm just going to say it, I think a lot more men are narcissistic than they want to say that they are, where their actions and their words do not meet. Like, what they're telling me and what their actions are not the same.
They're not coexisting. Yeah.
They are not. And then you push on something, right? You're like, well, we didn't communicate about this, or like,
right.
You didn't respond to this. And like, you're telling me this one thing and like your actions are not showing that.
Yeah. And a lot of men are insecure. Men have insecurities, and a lot of men don't even like to open up, or just, they feel like there's like this alpha in them where like, nah, like, I'll get over it. Or like, no, I'll be fine. It's like, no, like, you got to talk. So whether it's to your significant other, a friend, therapist, like, you got to tell someone, and
Right.
You'll feel better. Like, you will. And so that's, again, communication. It's important, but also, and your point with men, they do have a hard time opening up more than girls.
Right.
I think, because like you said, narcissism, it's definitely there. I think a little bit more with men. And the insecurities sometimes show. I don't know if you've had some past relationships or past dates where you're like, okay, yeah, I kind of see that they're struggling with something there.
Oh, my last relationship was like that. And I think that's why, like, definitely I knew his background. I knew what was going on, trying to help, like, trying to be that supportive person, right? Of like, I can't make you go to therapy. I can't make you get into counseling, but like, you really need some help. Like,
Yeah.
and that came in a lot of different facets. Like, obviously came in a lot of facets of getting cheated on. There was all these things. And then, like, afterwards, like, I remember telling him, like, I don't want you to go to therapy for me. Like, I want you to go to therapy for yourself. And like, I gave you enough chances to, like, I didn't run away the first time he cheated on me. And like, I gave you a lot of chances to want to, like, me kind of pick up that slack or me be supportive, right? And I think there's a lot of different perspectives on this. And like, even within my relationship, like, I know I've gotten to a point where I'm like, I'm really happy that relationship ended because I needed to learn things about myself too.
Exactly. Yes.
Like, it's not a...
Oh, they did this.
Was it a heartbreak? Yeah. Yes. Did it suck? Yes. Was I perfect? No. But like, I can't blame him on this all happening. Like, this is life. This is experiences. And like, for me, it's like, hey, that happened. But like, what am I going to do for myself? And like, I remember in conversations, things that he continued to say about me. And I was like, maybe I need to dig in a little bit deeper on like this topic and heal from that, or dive into that and like process that a little bit more for not only me, but also the next relationship and being a better person for yourself. But I think I just asked that because it's a weird dynamic, and especially like with you, where you are open to talking about this, about dating, because men and women have different perspectives on what communication is. And like, I think a lot of men say that they want communication, but that's the first thing that they're not willing to do is communicate.
Are you calling me out right now?
Do you feel like I am?
I'm just like, uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I'm just saying in my experience.
I'm just giving you a hard time. I'm totally just giving you a hard time. But no, and you're right. You know, like you said earlier, like that guy, or maybe I don't know if you were referencing someone, but their actions were not meeting their words.
Yeah.
So
that was actually a different person, but well, that person too. More specifically, a recent person. But I'm like, you can't tell me. Like, don't tell me that, and then you're not following up with your actions. Like,
yeah, that's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
No, we can't be
like,
doing
don't
that.
be surprised. Don't be
Because if you were to do that to them, they'd be like, oh, what the hell? Huh?
So bad.
Oh, did I just hit a wound?
It just is like...
I just hit a wound,
You did.
I did. I saw the look on your face.
You did.
Yeah.
It's not really a wound. It's an irritation because it's like I do want this to be a two-way street. Like, and for somebody to like expect that from me, but then like they can't hold those same expectations for themselves. Like, I'm sorry, but like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, truly, you know? And I'm saying this because I have a conversation so vividly in my head.
I can see it.
Yeah. Like I know,
yeah,
like
you got the VR goggles on.
Oh,
like,
it's just
back.
like it's like it's fresh. It's like fresh meat. Like it's raw meat right now in my brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I want to know why, you know, and like I don't want to know why necessarily because I know that's not going to progress to anything with that person, but it's like I want to know why because it's like, you know, like my boss did. He's like, well, have you thought about dating? And I'm like, sir, thank you for being the dad right now. Like,
have I thought about dating?
I'm like,
I've thought. I've thought. Next. God.
Oh my gosh. This has probably been one of my favorite podcasts. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
It has.
Oh, I can't let that. Okay. No, thank you. Yeah.
I think it's just been like all over the place, the banter, but also just like the realness, right? Like this is dating. This is how you get questions from people. Like this is how you understand what's occurring in our society right now, where it's like even my family, they're like, you know, I'm like, you know, my brother-in-law set me up on a date. I'm like, cool, I'll go. And he's like, well, you probably should. And I was like, well, I never said no. Like, I don't have a boyfriend because I'm not going out on dates.
See, and I'm so glad you said that. One thing that really kind of grinds my gears with like, sometimes when you're in friend groups and like, you know, you're kind of like one of the single ones and then like, and the friend groups are playing like matchmaker, like, oh, like they're single too. And then they're kind of like watching, like if you guys are talking. I can't stand that. Advice for everyone: if you guys are like trying to like make it happen with someone else, it's funny, but like, or kind of like, oh, what if? I think it's the most awkward shit ever. I can't stand it. It's so like, I don't know, because then it's not pure, right?
Well, because then they're like watching you.
Yeah.
Right?
And
they're
then
like,
I'm already like, all right, listen, like this ain't.
And they're like, well, why didn't it work out? And I'm like, probably because you're staring at
because y'all
this.
are hovering. Yeah. I'm not gonna, like, I don't know. Like, even if like a girl's cute, I'll be like, oh yeah, like, you know them. Yeah. And then I look over, there's just 8 faces just looking at me. I'm like, oh my goodness, okay. Or even like before too, there's been situations where they're like, hey, like so-and-so's coming. And then, or like they kind of like make like shove them towards you and then they look away like nothing happened. I'm just like, all right, now it's weird. I don't know. That's just me. I'm like, I want to meet someone and get to know someone where it's like pure, genuine.
Yes. I told myself, like one of my other episodes, you know, I went to actually a couples mastermind here locally. And as a single person, like looking for like that, like almost that advice of like, what kind of relationship do I want to be in, right? Like I kind of get to help cultivate and foster what that's going to be. And like I actually just lost my train of thought. Oh, I told myself I am not going to meet somebody on a dating site. Like I want to meet somebody authentically, so that means that I'm not on dating sites.
Right.
That also meant like, okay, well, how are you going to meet them? Like one way I have met a lot of people is honestly through the podcast. Like, because I send a message on my social medias of any new person that starts following me. Hey, thank you for the support. Appreciate it. Female, male, businesses, anything. It's just like whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, thank you. I've had some men reply to that. I've had like some encounters back from that, right? And then we start a conversation and it's like, cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. That's authentic. That's me
it's
doing
raw,
my
authentic, and you're willing to share.
There you go. There you go.
I like this.
And it's like, okay, that's kind of like where I want. But then that also means that like you can't be always searching for it, where you're like, you know, like run into the gas station, there's someone hot there, and you're like, oh, are they them? Like, are they the match, right? Like in your mind, you're like,
okay, there's been a few times where I'm like, wow, that might be my wife. A few times.
It happens.
It happens.
And I don't think people, and I think this is why I'm so intrigued of this conversation, is because like, I don't get to talk about it a lot with people. Like, nobody actually really wants to talk about this, like, how difficult it is.
It's a sensitive subject for, honestly, probably a lot of people. You know, that could be it.
Well, I love talking about sensitive subjects. I'm actually a sensitive subject master.
Oh, really? Who gave you that title?
Me.
Oh, did they? Okay. Well, you know what I am? I'm a guest on the Raw Thoughts podcast, and I got my certification as well. And, so that makes two of us.
I love it. I love it. I think we are over our time. I actually don't know, but I actually have dinner plans. Not with a man. It's actually really good friends that I'm meeting for dinner.
I wish you would have said you were gonna go to a date. I really wish you said that.
No.
Because we could have been like, oh, who is it? Shown picture.
No.
No?
No.
No? Nothing, anything lined up? Or you just kind of like, hey, I'm grinding away at the Raw Thoughts podcast. I don't got time for that right now.
No, like I allow time for it for sure. Several months ago, I was like that. I was just like, no, like it wasn't even in my like forefront. Like I didn't think of it. Yeah, it was like not even in my thought process. And then I did tell myself, I was like, okay, you're like, I think you should date again. You know, like dating is data points.
Let's get back out there.
Let's get, you know, which is like not really, I didn't do anything different, honestly. I think I just like put it in the universe that I was like dating again.
Yeah. And
there was one gentleman there's been two, I've never shared this one story. I don't know if I'm ready for it, but.
Go. Share it.
Do you want to know what the craziest thing from social media and dating I've ever done?
What? I don't. I want to know.
I had somebody fly me to Georgia. He paid.
The Peach State?
Yeah.
So I've had some friends that have gotten flown out, and I'm just like, I don't know if like, that's so wild. But continue. I'm sorry.
It was pretty wild. There was a second person that's like its own like. That should be its own podcast. I don't know if I'm ready to divulge all of that.
No, yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
But the other guy, like it was through it was through social media still. I had actually, like, this is probably gonna spill who it is, but I had actually at one point, this is what I was gonna also say earlier. Men don't know quite how to take compliments from a female. Like they get really like, where'd that just come from?
Yeah, it's because men don't really compliment each other.
No.
Sometimes it's like you're giving them shit because you love them.
Yes, it is the banter for sure.
Yeah, I'm honestly a big compliments guy. Maybe I give out a little too much. I feel like sometimes. So
you can never give.
I gotta gas up the homies.
You can never give out too many compliments.
I appreciate that. Okay,
they're free.
You know what? You are right. Yeah. I mean, I've been, kind of tossing, hella roses at some of my friends, and we're going to keep them going.
Keep them going. Keep it going. Because, like, it makes you feel good, right?
I love it. Yeah.
Then why would you stop? Why would you give less of that?
I'm not going to. I'm sorry. I interrupted your story. I don't
think I want to tell the story anymore.
No, you have to. You're like halfway in, right?
I don't even know what the point was. Anyways,
we got flown out, Georgia.
Oh yeah, that story's done. The second guy, like through the podcast, that's what I was talking about. Through the podcast is just like kind of business, kind of not. Like I think men just don't know where they are. I think that's the issue. I think that's the resolution of this conversation that I just came to.
Physically or mentally? Like,
I think
I'm in the studio on a podcast.
Yeah. I think it's you physically know where you are, so I think it's mentally.
So I'm okay. Mentally, beats me. I'm hungry. That's all I know.
There you go. Yeah. On that note, guys, we're wrapping up this podcast. I'm going to title this one My Favorite Podcast, honestly. This is one of my favorite conversations because it's just been back and forth, banter, some real raw shit here on the dating. Like we've kind of gone everywhere. This is the love of getting to be the host is like I never know where these conversations are going to go. That's the glorious part, really. Yeah.
You didn't give me like a set list or like what we're doing. So
no.
I was like, all right, whatever is going to happen, it's going to happen. So
that's kind of what the men say too. No, I'm just kidding. Terrible. On that note,
there's a pattern for sure.
On that note, thank you guys for another episode. I love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye. Thank you again for listening to another episode of Raw Thoughts Podcast. I'd appreciate it if you could follow, like, subscribe, and share with anybody that you think would be interested in this. You can also head over to my website at rawthoughtspodcast.com and see any other guests that have been on the episodes. You could also go over to Instagram and follow at rawthoughts.podcast. I would really appreciate it, and always send me a message if you're interested in being a guest or any feedback.